Good evening, everyone. Those of us in the hall, many of you who are online tonight. It's a great honor, great privilege to welcome the Venerable Pannavati to our community.
Again.
What?
Again.
Again. And she's also brought with her one of her long-term nuns, assistants, Soma. They both came down from Hendersonville, North Carolina today. So you know that this weekend, the Venerable will be leading an all-day meditation retreat on Saturday, and then we'll be giving the Dharma talk on Sunday. But tonight, just to give us a sense of her journey, I'm going to be playing the role of interviewer. Yeah, because I think it's, as I'm sure the Venerable knows, most of the time when you read the biographies or the autobiographies of all the ancient masters, they're really hagiographies. In other words, they just tell you all the practices they did and all the things, and you really don't have any sense of who they were as human beings, but you get a sense of everything they did and every book they studied and every teacher they studied with. But I think it's one of the unique things about our American Buddhism is that we like to know each other's stories. We are storytellers. So I just want to, even though tonight I'm most interested, of course, in her Dharma journey, her Buddhist journey, just to set the stage. So you were not born the Venerable Pannavati. You were born where?
In Washington, D.C.
In Washington, D.C. And any just thing about your family that you grew up in? That jumps out at you?
Yeah, I just don't know where they came from. I was not like my family at all. And so my childhood was not a happy one. And I wasn't really looking for anything because I didn't know there was anything to look for. But just trying to survive in a family where you didn't feel like you fit. And then you start going to school and you find you don't fit there either. And I mean, no place did I seem to fit. And that was the beginning of an inquiry. I didn't realize it at the time, but I was searching for something that wasn't in my functional environments. And my brother was he delivered newspapers. And if I run off with the story and you want to ask another question, just interrupt me. And I would help him. We'd go out early in the morning and drop the papers off. And one day, the driver of the truck had been drinking, and he had an accident. And my brother flew through the windshield from the back of the truck. And now I'm telling his story. He said as he laid there on the ground dying, and I'm there with him, he saw, and I was around 7 years old, he saw lines, a coffin line, draw up around him. And he heard a voice speak to him, and that voice said, and don't get hung up on words, it was speaking to him, so he understood it from his side. And he said, because of sin, you are dead. And he said that he cried out in his mind, "Oh, wait, give me a chance. I'm just 17 years old. I don't know how this game works." And he said, just show me the way, and I will walk in that way. And then he saw the lines, like erase. And that was the beginning of a spiritual journey for him, and I went with him.
Yeah, so it's interesting that, I know nothing really about your past or your brother, but I know you are somebody who is very open to spiritual experiences, so it must run in the family a little bit. The other thing I thought was interesting, oftentimes with new members, I meet all the new members and talk to them, get to know them. Oftentimes, people, even though they might have been in all kinds of places and situations and outwardly passed, for a normal human being in America for many ways, they often said inside, they always felt like there was something different about them. And it really often wasn't until they sort of came into a spiritual journey or came here that they sort of found their place, or they found their people. Because we are different, aren't we? So you grew up in that kind of family, but I know you've said from a very early age you had an affinity for the church.
I did, because that's what he did. And so I went along with him. I knew I was looking for something that could speak to me in a way that could know me altogether from the inside, in the way that he seemed to have encountered something. So I remember now, it was 6, not 7 years old. And so he went to an evangelistic outreach something or other. And he heard about Jesus, and if you wanted to be filled with the Holy Ghost, just get up and run down here to this altar. And so he said, well, now see, I was looking for something real, and now they're doing this hocus pocus stuff. And he said, he got up to leave. And then that same voice that spoke to him around that coffin said, suppose it's real. And he said, well, if it's real, I want it. And he got up and he ran down there. And by the time he hit that altar, something hit him, and he was speaking in tongues, and he was carrying on. So he came back and he told me about it, what happened to him. He told the whole family, and they all thought he was crazy. But I didn't think he was crazy, because it was something on inside that stirred, that it took a leap. It took a leap in me. And so I started going with him to these evangelistic outreach campgrounds. And so the pastor said, now, I want you to, anybody that you want to be saved, get a piece of their clothing and bring it tomorrow night. So he went through the whole, and when I say the neighborhood, I don't mean like down the street, round the corner. He went through all of Brooklyn. And he had these 2 big trash bags full of clothes, somebody's socks, somebody's handkerchief, but I'm talking about that bodhisattva aspiration. We didn't know it in these kinds of terms, but he went in there with these 2 trash bags. Okay, so now the preachers thought he was crazy, right? And they sort of like wanted to push him away. And so we found a Baptist church that was nearby us, and we started going there. And shortly after that, I did have, in Buddhism, we don't tell our experiences too much. In Pentecostal and Charismatic, we do. So there was this luminous figure. I was praying, I was in the bed praying, and it just sort of like walked straight through the wall. Didn't speak to me in words, but it spoke to me in some kind of telepathy, and I understood it, not as a 6-year-old, but almost like as like a grown person. And we had some kind of conversation. And that Sunday I went to church and I told my pastor, and a Baptist church, and he was saying like, oh no, it's no such thing as that. So then a couple of weeks later, I had the same experience. But this time, when he spoke to me, I spoke back. And I was speaking in tongues. I went back and I told my pastor. He said, no, that passed away with the apostles. And I said, well, then I don't know what to do. And my sister had heard about it, and my mother said, you don't go to church anymore. And she started locking the door so that I could not go. And my brother would come around and he'd sneak me out the window, and he'd take me to church with him. Of course, the church didn't know what to do with me because they weren't into that. That wasn't happening. So my sister said, there's these strange people on 12th Street. They got a little storefront church. They're called Holy Rollers. And she said, we go and we look in there sometimes. And so she said, they talk that talk you talk and all of that. So she took me there. And sure enough, I found my first tribe. And so I became a Pentecostal. And then some years it went on, I became a charismatic. And then I was working at the hospital, and I was in the hospice ward. And the unit manager called me and she said, we have a problem on your ward. And, I take care of the patients really good. She said, yeah, but they're not dying. And when we place them in these wards, there's a certain period of time. We know, pretty much about when they're dying. And she said, they're not dying fast enough on your unit. And so she said, we're gonna have to move you. And they put me in another department handing out coupons for food or something like that. And she said, these are people that you can talk with, like you can encourage them, you can, and so I ended up there. So then some of the doctors and nurses came to me and they said, we heard what happened to you, because that was a demotion. We heard what happened to you. And they said, would you like to join us? And so they took me down into the basement behind the boiler room, and there was a group of doctors and nurses who were charismatic Christians. And they were like doing their little cute little churka heel dance. Like we'd be like this, right? But they'd be doing this little thing, and they'd be singing in harmony, in tongues, in harmony. I'm like, this ain't real, because I know about all that kind of stuff. And then I remembered what my brother said, so now my experience is now vectoring off from him. He has his direct experience and he has his knowing, but mine was now out here, and it wasn't his and it wasn't my family's, but there was something that I was coming to know from the inside. That's all I can say.
Can you say, now that you look back with all the knowledge you have now, so what was happening to that young girl? When you say something was awakening inside her, some kind of knowing.
So I think certain seeds, certain karmic seeds were watered, and they began to sprout. But I didn't know anything about that. All I knew about was reliance on Jesus, and I'm not knocking that. Babies have to rely on their parents. And so, but we grow up. And it doesn't mean so reliance takes on a different character, a different quality, a different kind of expression, that it's like having a child. You want your child to do better than you did. You want your child to exceed what you've done, not to just constantly be groveling at the altar saying, save me. And so I began to split off from him because he liked one way. It spoke to him, but something else was speaking to me. And so I went that way. And after a while, I left the Pentecostal. I said, nobody in here is Pentecostal, right? Okay. So I said, they're a little bit uncouth. I like those ones that were like dancing and singing in harmony. It looked refined. It had a kind of noble quality. Plus, they knew the Bible front and back. They not just to feel something, but they could express some principles, speak of some qualities, had some kind of confidence in the path. And I said, I want that one. And so I went and I became a charismatic. But after some years, it's like I hit a glass ceiling, and something else was calling, something else that said that there was more, and that I could enter into it. And so then I said, by this time, I was a pastor, And I said, I had an altar call, and everybody came up. There were some new people in the congregation, but they didn't have room at the altar because all the old people were there. And I said, why is it that every Sunday we're up here at the altar groveling, because even a human parent wants their child to exceed them, And so I said, I want not to be saved, but I want to come up to the fullness of the measure of the stature of this one that I have come into contact with, that I know by heart. And so mine wasn't a Jesus of the book. It was some kind of a direct experience. And, I placed him according to the cosmology that they gave me. It didn't matter where he was. The thing is, I knew that he was real and that there was a way to connect. And then I had this vision, and this vision, somebody was calling me from the living room. And I was in the bride chamber with Jesus. And he said, you stay here, I'll go see what they want. And when he left the room, I looked and there was a door. I said, now when did that door get to our room? And I went and I opened the door, and it was a little classroom with a kindergarten table and chair and dust piled up high, meaning nobody had been in there for a long time. And there was another door. And I went through that door, and it was a big, brilliantly white, luminous room with a silver table and a scale. And there was another door. And I opened that door, and it was an alley. It was dark. It was dank. Had a Budweiser, a beer flash, what do you call it? Yes, neon sign flashing. And there were snakes and there were frogs. And there was no way out of that, like a closed-off alley. And so I closed that door, came back through the big room with the silver table and the scale, and back into the little room that was like a kindergarten classroom with a wooden table and chair and dust piled up, and back into the bride chamber. When I got back there, Jesus was there, and I said, Lord, when did that door get in our room? He said, oh, Diane, it's been there all along, but you couldn't see it because of the brightness of my countenance. He said, now you walk through that door, and I'll take care of those that call you from the living. We have a little feud going on right now. So you have to forgive us if I give cutting eyes to him. He said, you take care of those that call you from the living room. You take care of, you walk through that door, and I'll take care of those that call you from the living room. So that was on a Saturday. On Sunday, I took my congregation to a friend's church. I said, I'm leaving you here. You're in good hands. I cannot take you with me because I don't know where I'm going. But the one in whom I believe told me to walk through that door. And that was my exit from the Christianity that is the commonly known.
Even though the way you experienced it wasn't very common.
No.
It's interesting. It reminds me, those of you know, in our community, every couple of months we have somebody give what we call the mind that seeks the way talk, which is really about people looking, just like you did, at their whole life and seeing that there was always something calling them to something else. And it takes them this way, it takes them that way. Sometimes it's clear, sometimes it's very distant, and yet there's something always. And then eventually, when they come to Dharma, they really understand what it's really about. So you were Diane, last name was?
Jones.
Diane Jones.
See how much they cared about me. Those are the two most common names in 1950.
So you have, on the one hand, you have this very intense kind of spiritual life and yearning that's taking you here and there, and you're having experiences. But then you also, I mean, you're not a full-time seeker. You also have a worldly life. You work. You have a career. You get married. You kind of have a.
Yeah, but I would do like, like a little while over here, and then so whatever I did, I just went all in. So I'd go all in, with church and spiritual practice for 2 years, and like I need to take a break, and then I'd go all in. I mean, if you're gonna go to hell, go full hog. Don't half step. Just if you're gonna end up there, just go all the way. So I kind of did it like that. I was extreme on both. On both ends, I could not find a kind of balance. It was always, I was hot or cold. And so I left, and I started checking, took one step outside of Christianity, right? So I went to Unity. And I loved Unity for about 3 months, hit that ceiling again. Then I went to UU. Well, I don't know, they want to talk politics and all this. They want 10 minutes of spiritual talk or just sort of like pump you up, and which is okay. It just wasn't my thing, because when I was all in. And so I left Unity and I went to Science of Mind. And then I was at Science of Mind for about 6 months, and then I went, so bit by bit, I would like step out a little bit further, until I found myself lost, because nothing measured up to the experience. No amount of theology, no amount of philosophy, could measure up to the direct experience. It can't. I understand why the Buddha said, "Ehipassiko," you got to come see for yourself, because words don't have the capacity to express reality. It's not like we're just living in an illusion. Talk about that more tomorrow, Saturday. And so, finally, I left any kind of semblance of Christianity. And in that process, my family thought that I was just, in the beginning, that I was just completely lost, and I did too. And then I encountered Taoism. And I loved Taoism. I encountered it through martial arts. So I was a black belt, and I go all around the country fighting in tournaments, and it was pretty good for me because it gave me a way to deal off some frustration, in a controlled environment. So that kind of turned into skill. I was really good. Now I have another view about what that might have been all about, but back then,
what do you think that was all about?
I think I was a Asura before, because I have a fighting spirit, a fighting energy. Asura, yeah. And so either that or I had fought my way out of a hell realm. And so, but I mean, it was just there, and it was natural. But there was this other part of me that was so loving and so compassionate. I'm saying, like, how can this be? How can this sweet and this venom come out of the same fountain? Cola gave me the answer to that, because that was around the time that they created the singular faucet. Because before you had two faucets. I mean, I'm not that old, but in the beginning we had two faucets, hot and cold. But Cola made a single faucet. And then I said, I understand. Say, all worldly dharma is Buddha Dharma. I mean, you can look and find the answers to just about everything you want to know. It's all right around you. And so, then I said, I need a teacher. I need, because I'm...
So just parenthesis, you're about how old now when this...
maybe 28.
Late 20s.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's about 28.
Your spiritual awakening had taken you to a place where you were still looking and searching, and you felt at this point, I need
Yeah,
more
because there
direction, I
was
need
the
a teacher.
yearning. There was a yearning for something, and that yearning was so strong. What I could tell you now is I still go through constant transformations and transitions, but the yearning thing done, no yearning.
But at this point, you haven't been a finder yet, you're a seeker.
Right.
And then can you begin to tell us how you connected with Buddhism and where that journey
Through
took you?
Taoism. And so I was getting into some other kinds of things like, New Age healing practices and things like that. And I met someone, Pannavati, and he and I both became monks until he passed 2 years ago. And he was into Taoism, I was into the martial arts. He was into the internal arts, and he began to show me, how to really use this practice to build my spirituality. And so I gave up fighting and took up the practice of Taoism. And it did a lot for me, a lot. It's just that he was one speed slow. I mean, he was like, it didn't even look like his feet touched the ground. He walked so softly. When I walk, I plod, 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 And so you got to be able to walk slow and run fast, And so anyway, we went to China to see our grandmaster, our master's master, and he was a breatharian. So the only thing at their temple they did was they drank tea. They had 10 adopted children, and then they had the monks, and then Master Chenzang Long. And so no, I didn't become a breatharian, but I had a good weight loss program to market when I got back to America. And so, but while I was there, he said, Buddhism is for you. And I said, no, if I looked at that, I'm not interested in that. Because there was all this talk about ahimsa, like harmlessness, and I hadn't passed through that stage yet, still had some. I said, no, I looked at that, and I'm not interested in that. He said, no, it is for you. And so he took me to a Chan temple, and I told them to give me novice precepts, and he said, and when you go back home, you find a temple, and you go in.
So this aspiration to be a nun
started as a directive.
Started as a directive. So when he said, Buddhism is for you, he didn't just mean as a practice. He meant as a life path.
As a life path.
And did that, since that, in the way you grew up and all your religious training was not in the realm of, monastics and what, right? So was that? How did that strike you? How did that strike you?
Well,
then?
I thought back to when I was a child. We didn't have it in the Baptist church, but I lived near St. Anthony's Catholic Church, and I used to like to sneak in there and dip in the holy water, and I loved to smell the frankincense and myrrh, and I loved to hear the sounds, when they sang in the cathedral, and it always touched me, but I wasn't Catholic, so we didn't have that. And then when I got some Catholic friends, and found out their teachers beat them every day. I was like, I'm glad I'm not Catholic. You know, Buddhists, their calling card is hospitality. So I learned hospitality, you know. But I had wished I was a Catholic, because I know now that if I had been, I would have been, you know, I would have been a nun. I don't care. It was leading me in this way because I think just me, Pannavati's mind, needed a kind of single focus. You know, it was what I was reaching for. It ain't for everybody.
No, but that's quite extraordinary. I mean, most people, I mean, their story would be, you know, they got involved with Buddhism as a layperson, they studied, they practiced in Buddhism, and then at some point heard the call, you know, to be monastic. But you're saying you went right for it.
Yeah, but you know, if you look at many, if not most of the Buddha's disciples, they came because they were dissatisfied with life. They started experiencing the suffering of life, or they were looking for something that they didn't know what they were looking for and couldn't find it. And when they heard the Dharma, that ease came from deep, deep, deep inside. You know, we would say in the church, out of your belly shall flow rivers of living water. But it was something like that. It was already in us. And just, I won't say trying to remember, because it wasn't like something that I lost. It was something that I was that I didn't realize, because no one had said, look there. And so I didn't put all of this together for another decade, you know. But I came on back, and I could not find an English-speaking Chinese temple to go into.
That is true.
So I went into a Tibetan one in Baltimore, and I was in New Kadampa.
Oh, New Kadampa. Mm-hmm. So let me just stop for a second. I mean, I think your story is, because of who you are, has a lot of flourishes to it and a lot of extremity to it and a lot of very powerful experiences. But I think your journey, you know, is very much, I think, a journey that many people can relate to, that there is something inside us that is very, inchoate. It's not clear. It's like you say, it starts out with a sense of something's missing, or it's never quite right, we never quite fit in, or it's never enough, and you don't know what it is. And there's this kind of peeling off, you know, of layers, and all of a sudden you go, oh, you know, it's like you pick up the pieces. And I guess if you believed in past lives and karma, you'd say, oh, you know, that's an awakening. Mm-hmm. You know, that's already been inside me, waiting for the right situation, the right development to all of a sudden begin to blossom and come forth.
Yeah, but I say that now because right. I learned that, but I had been taught something else, like, you know, it's appointed unto man once to die and then the judgment. I'm like, I need more time, because...
But I guess what's so fascinating about listening to your story is you knew that from inside. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You know, all this stuff is coming from the outside, but there was something inside you, a kind of inner wisdom or knowledge that you just always made the right choices. Or you always knew when to say no, or there had to be something else, or maybe not always. Well, we're not getting the whole story.
I made a few mistakes. But one thing that would, you know, I remember once when I was Pentecostal, and I'm in church and just shouting, filled with the Holy Spirit, and passing out and having visions and all of this, and the service is over and I'm leaving, and I look across the street and I see somebody walking my dog that was stolen. You know, your own pet, you know, all the way across the street, and I see this person walking up the street with my dog on a leash, and I'd been looking for the dog for weeks, and I crossed the street, and he sees me, and he starts straining to come to me, and I said, that's my dog, right? And the person's trying to tell me it's their dog, Now, I'm in front of my church. I hope nobody comes outside, because I am getting my dog. And I carried on terrible out there. Now, 5 minutes earlier, I was having this huge religious experience. 5 minutes later, I'm about to beat the crap out of somebody over my dog. And I said, now how can this be? How can I be both of these people? I need to know something. I need to know something about me. And
I guess, to me that's extraordinary how much insight you had into yourself, because most people go through it unconscious or wouldn't put it together. Like you saw what was happening and you saw the paradox. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So clearly,
yeah.
you know what I mean? You were aware, well, into something, 5 minutes ago I'm in there, bathing in the light of the Lord, and now I'm out here ready to kill somebody.
Yeah, and I was shamed because I knew I didn't have to do that. It's like, I'm gonna just act out a little bit. I could decide the degrees of acting out, So my sister is, she's passed now, but she was bipolar, but she could act real, she could get real wild with some of us, but she knew not to get that way with me. I'm like, no, you go do that with them. And she said, okay. And she would come under, she would come under submission. It was something like that. We have all these diagnoses for people. I'm not so sure that it's those things, And so I said, who can tame me? Who can tame me? Now I jumped back some years. So what I decided to do is I'm going to enroll in the military. So I go down to the
This is between 11 years old and 13?
Oh no, I was in my late 20s then, and by this time I had finished college and had a couple of degrees, and so they were going to make me an officer. You get to be an officer if you come in with the degrees, right? I said, yeah, give me that, because I really want a fighting job, but So that was great. I'd come in as a commissioned officer. So I called my old pastor friend. I said, I joined the Army today. She said, did you sign the paper yet? I said, no. She said, don't go and sign that paper. She said, you just want some discipline, but nobody from the outside is going to be able to discipline you. You're going to have to discipline yourself. So I didn't sign the papers. She said, you come to church. And so I didn't sign the papers. So now the government's trying to lock me up because they're trying to tell me I committed myself. Where's the signature? I hadn't signed it, but they were so upset. But she saved me from that. But I thought about what she said. It was like I had a desire for me to be who I somehow knew that I was, but I needed the path of discipline to come into the fullness of who I was. And so so she got me out of that. So
let's come back to
fast forward
to being a nun, which is a very disciplined life, right?
Right.
You got
Okay.
300 and something rules to live by.
Well, I'm like who's the Ajahn Chah? Somebody asked him about all those rules. He said, I keep one rule. I keep rule of my mind.
So that's the kind of nun
Or
you've
maybe
always been?
sometime, maybe he might have said, I think he said my mind and he could say it. But over here we say the mind, whatever. That was it. I needed a path of discipline, maybe more than others because I was extreme. I was extreme, you know. My karmic imprint, you know, was that way. I hear in a certain way. I respond, you know, in a certain way. It could be very different from other people, you know. But so who speaks to me? You know, what's so good about the Dhamma? The Dhamma speaks to each person in the language they can hear and they can understand.
So can you share with us a little bit? So you, as I say, your entrance into Buddhism, you know, very
Fred,
quickly.
can you turn the mic on?
Oh. Your entrance into Buddhism very quickly, you know, you made a commitment to be a nun, to take novice vows. So tell us a little bit about, and this was 30 years ago?
30 years ago?
40 years ago?
I'm 74.
So this was
So
when
this,
you,
now times keep moving.
oh yeah.
Now it's 1998.
Okay, so yeah, 30 years ago, 25, 30 years ago. So tell us a little about your Dharma journey.
Okay, so I come back and can't find a Chinese temple where they speak English. So I go into a Tibetan one, and oh boy, it was like beautiful, you know. There's Tonkas and there's all of these Buddhas and all of these Bodhisattvas and all of these holy beings, and I just loved all of it, and I could resonate with it. I could enter into some spaces, you know, it's beyond, just talk about electricity and frequency, it's always way beyond that. But could enter into these thin spaces where my mind could be tuned by their mind because I was present with them. So I loved it. But one day I'm leaving the temple and this Theravada monk comes down the street. It looks like, just, you know, it just looks like, it wasn't like that, but it just looked like his feet weren't even touching the ground. He was moving, he was smooth. He was moving so smoothly. And he had on, we wear like a wine wrap, that's one of the colors, a wine wrap. But his was more like reddish. So it even had a special, you know, look. And I see him reach into his Buddha bag, and it's like he's going in slow motion. He's moving down the street like this there, right? Goes into his Buddha bag, and he pulls out a copy of and I'm coming up the street, pulls out a copy of the Majjhima Nikaya and gives it to me, the middle-length discourses of Theravada. Now, and as I began to read them, it was so satisfying to me, you know, because it's not just about having experiences, but it's about having informed, you know, experience. And so in there, I began to learn about basic Dharma principle. I never knew any of that stuff. I didn't. And when I began to read that, I could see what was wrong with me. I could, you know, and I could begin to correct my behavior because I was correcting my perspective, the way I looked at something, my attitude towards it, you know, and it shifted everything to me. So unlike most who leave Theravada and go to Mahayana, I left Vajrayana and went to Theravada. I left the penthouse and went to the basement. But I loved it so much because it was so much to know about me. Everything I read in there wasn't just words on a piece of paper. That was me, you know. And so I switched, and in my switch, holy moly, they're the most fundamental, you know, of all of the different schools, the most fundamental. And I said, I think I made a mistake. But it was what I needed for me to figure out not who somebody else says I am, but who I actually am. And that I could really come to know this. And so it was a torturous way for me as a bhikkhuni, because I started writing a book one time called The Recalcitrant Nun, because I didn't want to do anything. I didn't want to follow any rules. I mean, I didn't want to bow down to the monks. They don't bow down to me. I didn't want to, I didn't want to look so prim and proper on the outside. No, I'm hating on somebody, But I saw a lot of fixing up on the outside, and I saw adherence to the rule, as if the Dharma was for the rule, instead of the rule being something that could help me, constrain me, and reach, and be able to reach that point of virtue that I was after, that I knew was really available to me. If I had, it established the discipline for me. It was not the rule for me. So I went on a 20-year journey of trying to get that across to the ones who live by the rule, and I still haven't gotten it across, but I love them anyway.
Well, it's so much. It's just such a pleasure to. It's hard to know which way to go here. As I say, I think for those of us who are listening, you're hearing the story of one person's quote unquote spiritual journey, something to one degree or another we're all on. But to me, the most salient thing is that you always listened to that voice inside you. And for many people, they hear competing voices. They hear the voice of ego, the voice of conditioning, the voice of pleasure, desire, all kinds of voices. But it seems, and you might have had those voices too, but somehow there was something else pulling you, and you obeyed it. And you seem to have been sort of fearless that when you knew the time was right, you just walked on, right? And even if these were sharp turns you made.
Yeah. Well, there's a time for everything in life. You just really have to kind of know what time it is. I was fearless when I was in my teens, in my 20s, and my 30s, and my 40s, the 50s too, the 60s, and now I'm midway through the 70s. And I know what time it is, so I'm a little more circumspect now, a little more reserved. I'm taking my temperature and my pulse, and I know some things, if I didn't do them before, I'm not going to do them now. Just the energy might not be there. So sometimes in life we have regrets, but I tell you, I have no regrets. I could drop tomorrow. And, really, sometimes it's strange, because no fear of death, because I've seen some things, and maybe not at will can I enter into those spaces, but sometimes I get the smoke cleared, and I know what's there. If anything were to give me pause, it is continuing in this illusion. You go to sleep at night, you have a short dream. You wake up, it's a long dream, but it's all just a dream. And if you ever had any kind of awakening, waking up from that dream, when you're dreaming, it's a dream. And so things that I couldn't understand because we're trying to explain them using language prajna, language wisdom, and that's like if you're driving, that's at 0 to however far you go. Starting at 0, that's ignorance, 0. So language wisdom can only take you so far because it's starting at 0. And we try to explain things that just can't really be explained using a language. And so if we fasten too tightly around, like, I don't care if it's Buddhist language or Christian language, or I don't care. If we fasten too tightly around words, we will like miss it. We'd be standing at the corner of 5th and T, and you're supposed to be at 7th and M. That's where the bus is going by. And so it's just a step-by-step journey. And the thing is, it's not just addition. It's not just 2 plus 2 plus 2. It's multiplication, you know. And so you can take a fast journey or you can take a slow journey. Just depends on which math you're going to use.
Let me ask you a question. So we have, I don't know, 25 so in the hall. How many people do we have online, Brian?
We have 55.
55 online. So having, as an American, been on your own journey now, your own spiritual journey, your own Buddhist journey. We have an audience of, many people will be at your retreat on Saturday and see you on Sunday. But from your years now, and you've been teaching the Dharma for how many years? How many decades?
For 24 years. 24
years. So what would you say to these people? Well, what would you say to them? You know, I mean, you've just, I'm always fascinated by, as you, I'm sure since you've been in Asia many times, and I know you're very aware of the difference between the Dharma, the true Dharma, and all the cultural things that are overlaid it. Often, that seems to be the majority of it in many cases, but true Dharma. So what would you say to people about, their journey as practitioners? What to remember, what not to forget, what's most important?
I think what I would say is the Dharma is not just some kind of truth set out here. For something to become the true Dharma, it takes the truth, it takes the hearer, it takes the circumstance, it takes the aspiration. When all of these come together, that becomes the true Dharma. However many people in this room and however many people online, that's how many different people are hearing me say something entirely different. Each person is hearing it from their own side, from their own experience. Even though I'm saying it in one way, the magnificence of the Dharma is that it knows how to split apart so that the hearer hears what they need to hear. And to me, that's the biggest difference between true Dharma and counterfeit Dharma. We're living in a Dharma-ending age. And the counterfeit tries to tie it up all nice and neat in a bow and say, here it is for you. It is this. And I'm telling you that is not the way. So the confidence comes in, I think it was, I like a lot of the Christian scriptures. I just don't think the people who use them understand them, But there was one that comes to mind. Oh shoot, left my mind. I'll tell you before I leave this podium because it was important. It was good too. If I don't think of it tonight, I'll tell you tomorrow, because it will circle back around. That's the good thing about this. It's never gone. That's the whole thing. It's never gone. Maybe it's not for this particular moment. That's a good excuse. You think? That work all right? Okay. So I just think that it's important to know that each person hears according his own karma and according to his own cultivation, his own set of virtues, and his own obstacles. And see, you know, like one thing that the Dharma does for us, it teaches us how to solve our own problems. And I think that's all I ever wanted all my life, is to be able to solve my own problems. Now, I won't say that's the purpose of it. I'm just saying that's like if you're walking on a dusty road, a little dust comes up and gets on your shoes. That's a perk. That's a byproduct. But it's a good byproduct. It teaches you how to solve your own problems. It teaches you how to like clearly and definitely look at something and know how you really feel about it, how well you really understand it, and how willing you are to walk in it, you know. And it's a good because it takes the weight off the teachers. You know, I used to feel so obligated, you know, to my students. I used to feel so like it was my responsibility, you know, to make sure that they got it, you know. And one day my Dharma master said to me, you know, the Dharma can take care of itself. It doesn't really need you for that. It just needs you to, you know, to put it there in front of people, you know. And you don't have any other obligation to that. That's for them. And I was so happy to hear it. You know, it was like a weight lifted off of me. And then he turned to me and said, "Aren't you glad now you gave up that phony teaching job?" and I was. You know, sometimes I think I take it back because, like on one hand, it's all true and it's all real to me in a very deep way. But on the other hand, I am a professional Dharma teacher. And that part is the part that I find very difficult, you know. Yeah.
Reminds me, you know, that the Buddha said, right? I mean, you know, when he's to his students and he said, you know, it was sort of like, I wish I could do it for you.
Mm.
You know, I forget, it was toward the end of his life. He said, I wish, you know, but all I can do is, you know, teach you the Dharma and point it out and keep you at the best of my ability walking the right path. But you got to work out your salvation for yourself. I cannot do it for you. I wish I could, but everybody has to do it themselves, and that's very empowering.
Isn't that so wonderful?
Yeah, that's
it's
very
like, treat
empowering.
me like an adult.
Yeah.
You know.
The Buddha didn't quite say it like that, but I like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Talk to me like I'm an adult. I can understand things.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. So we have a few more minutes. Questions? Anything you want the Venerable to comment on? If you're online, just chat it into Brian. And in the house, just put up your hands. Yes. And what is your name again?
My name is Marlon. So you just talked a little bit about like counterfeit Dharma, and I'm just curious if you could like elaborate on that. Like, are you seeing like wrong messages by other organizations like this one, or like what do you mean by counterfeit Dharma?
So the Buddha said, when the counterfeit Dharma comes into the world, the true Dharma will be lost. And so I can look at what's occurring in our world today and see that we're moving away from the notions of a universal law, I would say, of virtue and rightness, of compassion and wisdom. And so lies become truth, truth becomes lies. You know, everything is turned inside out. But the Dharma gives you the clarity to see exactly what is what. And it dispels that kind of confusion. So if you've been practicing something, I mean really putting it to the test, You know, even the way that you received it. And I won't say it's not working for you. I just say it's not working. Forget for you, it's not working. There's something missing. It's like giving milk to people who need strong meat to build their bones. That also is counterfeit Dharma. And so when you're in a place like this, I was listening to a few of Fred's, I haven't seen Fred and Angie for since 2016 or 17, 16 or 17, you know. And so I said, I better check him out. So I did. And I said, I don't need to listen to this. Fred talks just like I talk, you know. And so, and so it was like really, really, really wonderful, you know, for me. But there's some things, as soon as I listen to them, I know, because I know the principles of the Dharma. I know that's going to lead somebody away from their aim or away from their goal. Again, tied in with this is, you know, so evil and erroneous views. Don't get hung up on the word evil, because it means something different in this system than it means in another. Evil means it will never get you to your goal. That's what evil means. If I'm trying to go in this way and I'm doing this and it's taking me further that way, how to be happier with my things, how, you know, whatever, that's not going to take me to my goal. I don't even know what the purpose, well, I know y'all know because y'all belong here. But most of the places I go in have no idea what the purpose of the Buddha's message was at all. Only how it relates to our happiness in life, in this life, and our attachments to the things that we want. And it doesn't stray too far from there, because you want the people to keep coming, and maybe that's all you know too, you know. And so anything that's not leaning towards true liberation of mind, you know, true liberation of mind. What was that? I tell you, I was telling Angie and Fred tonight over dinner. Yes, I do eat dinner. You know, let me sidetrack for a second. So that's an example about rules. In India, they get up early in the morning, because like about 10 or 11 o'clock, it's getting too hot to do anything in India. So they get up really, really early, and they handle their business. And about 10 o'clock, it's moving towards nap time. You know, everywhere is shutting down. And then they get up, they eat early, you know, like 4 o'clock in the morning, 5 o'clock in the morning, you know. They would have a meal, be finished by noon. You know, they'd sleep until the evening. It gets a little bit cooler. Then they start their Dharma practice, you know, around 6 o'clock, and roll all night. And that's what they did. It was logical. It made sense. They would break for 3 months, called it the rains retreat, during the monsoon. We don't have monsoon over here. We have snow in the wintertime. And so it makes sense for us to have our retreats during the times when half the country is snowed in. Not in June, July, and August, which is the summertime, when it is the best time to, you know, promulgate the Dharma. I mean, some things like you should be getting some common sense, you know, and that's when we start to to be overruled. That is, for me, something I would call a counterfeit Dharma. The rules weren't for, Dharma was not for the rules. The rules are devised to give us support for you walking in the essence of the Dharma. And when we get that all mixed up, we get confused, tangled up, and we just find ourselves in another, quote, religion, or if you get offended by religion, another quote, philosophy, or, and or quote, another self-development course, and there's no Dharma there. But Dharma will lead you to real, and I don't want to say too much about experiences like you trying to have experience. You don't have to try to have them. It's just that, we have a certain bandwidth for seeing, right? We have a certain bandwidth for hearing. So my cat plays with other creatures it can see. I can't see them. Do I think they're there or the cat's just crazy? I think they're really there. The cat plays with them. My dogs, when I had them, could hear things I couldn't hear because I don't have the same bandwidth. So do I think my dog is crazy because he hears something? No, I think he has a more expansive bandwidth. As you enter into this or come out of the obscurations of your delusions, step by step, as the Dharma gives us clarity, then we start to discover that our capacity increases. That's all. It's like I don't have them. It's like putting on glasses. I can see better. I mean, I can make glasses to make me see better. I think, so why do I think that's a strange thing? We can make hearing aids that make us hear better. So why do we think, that there's not a wisdom that can be applied, to create the capacity for one to wrap another's mind and know what they're thinking. I mean, even the Aborigines can do that. That's not even out of this world. Uneducated Aborigines can learn to communicate non-verbally, mind wrapping mind. So why do we think that's so strange? Because we have a counterfeit Dharma? Oh, I shouldn't go into this with y'all tonight.
Thank you.
It's getting a little late. Anything, Brian, upstairs, or are people good?
There's one question from Nina. She says, is what you love about Christianity the universal truths you also find in Buddhism and what the mystics from nearly all religions say?
I would say, I'm Buddhist because for me, just speaking for me, is the most profound. When I was in any one of these other disciplines, I was in it because, for me, it was the most profound. And when it ceased to be, I kept looking. But the Dharma, I haven't found anything better. If I do, I'll let you know. I honestly have not. It is so ever expanding, and it gets better than it because it is me and I am it. So ever expanding. I mean, our scientists are just catching up with this whole idea about the universe ever expanding. Everything there is to know is all in me. I don't know it yet because I haven't penetrated, depths, but every indication that I have keeps telling me, you stay with this and you keep going. And that's all I can say. And the Buddha, it started with some confidence. I had some confidence. We have confidence in a lot of things. Those of us that say, I need the cold hard facts. No, we don't. When we buy that car, we have confidence we're going to be able to pay that car note because we have confidence that we're going to still have our job because we have, every day, we have the faith that we're going to wake up tomorrow, but then when you get around here, no, I need proofs. I need hard facts, but it's almost like You know, you want to know how far this road goes? I can't just tell you. You have to walk the road to know it for yourself. But once you do, you just go as far as you can go. Maybe you'll come to the end of this road and discover something else. If you do, look me up, because I want to know about it.
Thank you. It's been really wonderful just listening to you and having you share so much at so many different levels. Yeah. Quite extraordinary woman, isn't she? Thank you. So it's 8:30. Thank you, everyone. Again, we have, I think, we have 60 people in the hall on Saturday, and I think almost another 40 online for the retreat. All worldly Dharma is Buddha Dharma. And then the Venerable will also be giving the Dharma talk on Sunday. So deep bow. Thank you. And let me just share the merit, any benefit that may have come to us from sharing the Dharma this evening. May it go to alleviate the suffering of all beings, and may it ripple continuously to aid in the healing and transformation of the world. Thank you, everyone, for joining us.